down really quick, so give me a minute. But happy summer relay stream day. Uh, says live, says live. Oh, the joys of technology. I'm a little paranoid about the sound, so I'm just making sure it works. So, Dr. French, can you say hello?
Hello, everybody. I'm so excited to be here. This is a first for me, so very exciting.
Awesome. So the sound's working, which is great. So again, everybody, I hope you're all doing well. I know we have a couple of viewers popping in. This is day one of our summer relay stream. So for the next 96 hours, we already have, 10 hours down, which is fantastic. So 86 more hours. We are streaming every single hour until midnight on Sunday. So we have some fantastic creators, some incredible content coming your way. Full schedule can be found. I'm going to put the command in the chat on our website. And also, if you're in our Discord, you can check out the schedule there. Obviously, planning some raids, show support for your fellow creators. But we're really excited because this event is going to make a huge impact. We've already raised almost $500, which is incredible, especially in just 10 hours and during the hours of the night when many people are sleeping, usually me as well. I probably should have gotten some caffeine before this. Um, so we're here today with our first installment of our season one Let's Talk About Epilepsy stream. And so what we're basically going to be doing in this series is once a month we're going to be bringing you somebody who's an expert in the field from the Epilepsy Foundation, and we're just going to be able to go over some topics, some basics about epilepsy, treatments about epilepsy, what we're doing at the Epilepsy Foundation to support our community, and what your dollars and what you're doing to raise awareness supports. And so today I'm really excited to kick it off with our Chief Medical and Innovation Officer, Dr. Jacqueline French. And so she's here with me today. Hello, hello, hello.
Hello,
And I
everybody.
would
Hello,
love for
everybody out
her.
there.
She's been such a good sport this morning. You know, the sound and testing on streams can be really finicky, as you all know as creators. So she's been a really good sport with me, and she's very busy. So we're really lucky to have her today for an hour to answer questions and to also just go over epilepsy. What is epilepsy? What is seizures? She's done so much in the field. So without further ado, Dr. French, if you'd like to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit more about your background and how you came about coming to the Epilepsy Foundation.
Absolutely. So I have been uh, dealing with epilepsy, thinking about epilepsy for over 30 years.
Wow.
In
That's how
addition,
old I am.
oh my goodness, not surprising, I guess, but yeah, because I've definitely been in the epilepsy field since a little bit after my first child was born at age
Wow.
35. So
That's
there you go.
amazing.
That's when
Wow.
I did my fellowship. But I started out as a professor of neurology and seeing epilepsy patients at the University of Pennsylvania, and then moved to NYU, which is where I work now. And I've been seeing people with epilepsy for all of those 30 years.
Wow.
But I started to get really interested in, seeing what we can do to, when I first started in the field, believe it or not, there were only five medicines that people could take, or major
Only
medicines that
five?
people could take, only five.
Wow.
And, there wasn't a whole lot we could do. We could mix and match, we could do epilepsy surgery. None of the devices existed. And, I really felt like I wanted to think about how we could bring new treatments into the space and also think about how to do it faster and better and more efficiently. So that sort of became my passion. I got involved in doing clinical trials of the new drugs as they were being developed over the years. And as part of that, I came into contact with an organization called the Epilepsy Therapy Development Project, which sort of is right
Oh,
in
okay.
my wheelhouse, right?
Yeah.
They were a nonprofit started by the father of a child with epilepsy whose name was Warren Lammert.
Mhm.
And for those of you who are interested in history, he also was the original creator of epilepsy.com.
Really?
So, yes. So he created, along with my current boss, actually, at NYU, Orrin Devinsky, he and Orrin Devinsky, who's also a professor there, developed epilepsy.com so that people could have all the information that he knew he never had and
That's
he
so
thought people
cool.
needed. But he also was passionate about speeding up, the development of new therapies, which sometimes can just be too slow. So
Right.
I started to work with him on that and became the chief scientific officer of that organization. And then, lo and behold, probably about 8 years ago, people started to whisper in his ear saying, why don't you and the Epilepsy Foundation get together? Because, we're stronger together. And I'm sure everybody has heard that before,
Yes,
stronger
it's true.
together. And so they started to have discussion and they eventually merged. So the epilepsy therapy project, development project, became a piece of what the Epilepsy Foundation does. And that sort of meant that I moved over instead of being the chief scientific officer of the epilepsy therapy development project, became the chief scientific officer of the Epilepsy Foundation,
Oh,
and
cool.
from there merged into being the chief medical officer since seeing patients is the other major part of what I do and thinking about how to get people better just on a day-to-day basis. So you can help people one by one, which is incredibly rewarding, and you can help people in large groups by getting new therapies that eventually will get large groups of people better. So I
Right.
really feel blessed, is the only way I can put it, that I've had the opportunity to do both.
You've been such a huge part of treatments. That's insane. So, wait, now there were five. How many treatments are there now?
There are about 25,
25.
25 drugs, and then
Wow.
there's
Then the
there's multiple
devices.
devices, and surgery has gotten better, and there's diet. So
Right.
there's lots
More
of
lifestyle.
things that we can do. Yeah.
Wow. So it must be so cool to be in the beginning of something like that, where there is so much work to be done and to see a lot of progress. That must be a really rewarding feeling.
It is rewarding, but I also am very mindful of the fact that we are nowhere near the end.
Right?
We're
Right.
still sort of at the beginning because there are so many people, and I'm sure some people watching that haven't found the right treatment for them that gets them seizure free. And, the thing that's like so amazing about epilepsy is that, you can space out the seizures by giving better therapy. And you think, like if they're further and further apart, and eventually they get so far apart that they're infinitely far apart, then, the person doesn't have epilepsy anymore. And
Right.
they go back to the life path that they originally had imagined for themselves. And I've been fortunate enough to see that
Oh,
happen over and over again and see the impact that it has on people when it does happen, and it's just crazy.
right, right. That makes it all worth it, right? That you know that you're able to help affect change in someone's life, which is awesome. That's so cool, Dr. French. I didn't know half of that stuff. So that's
So
really
there you
a
go.
delight for our viewers. So if anybody's watching, if you have, oh, first question. He's actually one of our ambassadors. One of my faves. His name is Pat, or
Hi, Pat.
Sandre. He said, "What are you most proud of since you started doing this work?"
That's a good question. I think that what I am most proud of is it's kind of a little bit weird, but there were clinical trials that were being done that put people in harm's way, and I was very concerned about that, and they were being done relatively commonly. I will explain to you exactly what they were. They were trials in which, because the Food and Drug Administration, which is the organization that determines whether a drug is going to actually be marketed and how and for what, said, well, all of the studies that determine whether a drug works are adding on to what people already are taking, But, if you want to sell the drug to use by itself, which is the way we want to use them, we don't want people piled on with drugs. If it's a good drug, we want people to use just that drug, right?
Right, right.
So that's called monotherapy, the only therapy. Then you have to prove that it works in that way. Well, how do you do that? I mean, you have to have a comparison group that it's doing better than. So how do you do that? So people would take people who were on therapy that was not completely effective, but probably was doing something for them, and then add on this medication in half of them and sort of an ineffective medication in the other half, and then slowly take their background drugs away to
Wow.
see how long they could last before they started having their seizures get worse.
Wow, that does sound
Um,
problematic.
yeah, so I basically stood up and said, no, this is not good, and figured out another way to do those studies that didn't put people in harm's way. So and kind of
Wow.
got the FDA, which had not, like been willing to consider a different way of doing it, to agree to do it the other way, and now we're doing it the other way, and we're getting
That's
drugs
so
approved for
cool.
monotherapy so
So
people can
you
use
you helped
them.
develop the process of how you would test monotherapy drugs.
Right,
That is so
exactly.
cool. You guys, we have a celebrity in our midst. I'm like nerding out a
Well,
little bit. That's
not
incredible. What an
not exactly, but
accomplishment.
like it's always great when people say it can't be done, it can't be done, don't even bother. And
Right.
then you find a way,
And
you
you
go, and
did.
that's my advice to everybody there in terms of getting their seizures under control. You go under the wall, you go, oh, you dig under the wall, you fly over the wall, you punch through the wall, you do whatever you have to do to get to the other side of the wall.
I love that. That's such a great analogy. Yeah. Sundre says amazing. I agree. I am echoing that sentiment. Wow, you are such an incredible resource for people with epilepsy. I hope that more people, you guys can answer questions while we have her here. She's a very busy lady and clearly she knows a lot. So please, 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 please ask more questions. But I'd like to go back. I know we have talked about what we kind of be talking about today and just kind of the basics. So for people that maybe are stumbling upon this chat, or don't know as much about epilepsy or seizure disorders, could you just go over the basics of what is epilepsy, what are seizures, and how can you get epilepsy and seizures?
Okay, so um, epilepsy is just the state where the brain is a little bit too excited, hyperexcitable, and that excitability produces an electrical discharge in part of the brain or all of the brain at once, which is called a seizure. And when the seizure happens, depending on where it is in the brain and how much of the brain is involved in that seizure discharge, people are going to have a reaction to that. If it's a little tiny area of the brain, they may not even notice it's going on. We
Mm,
call that a subclinical seizure.
okay.
If it's a little bigger part of the brain, they may get some sort of feeling, sensation, motor activity in the part of the brain where the seizure is coming from, because different parts of the brain do different things, right? So if your little electrical discharge is coming from the part of the brain that, let's say, is involved with motor activity on the right side of the body, then maybe you have a little twitching of the right side of the arm, right?
Oh, okay.
If, on the other hand, that little electrical discharge is from an area that is involved with, memory, then you may have an image of your grandmother. So it can be anything, right?
Wow.
It can
Right.
be a funny smell. It can be an emotion. A lot of people have sort of like a sudden anxiety or a sudden fear that comes out of nowhere because that electrical discharge is tickling that part of the brain that produces anxiety or fear. And they're like, where did that come from? Why did that
Wow.
happen?
Okay.
Usually seizures last, they sort of spread like, ripples on a pond, and they can spread for a short period of time, a short amount of space in the brain or a larger amount of space in the brain. And, the amount of havoc they wreak depends on how far they spread.
Okay.
Um, So, if it doesn't spread that far, it may be just that emotion or that visual thing you see or that motor activity. But if it spreads further, then people will be unable to process what's going on in their environment in the world. So
Okay.
when you lose awareness, and it may not be losing consciousness, and that's a part that people who don't have
They
epilepsy have
assume.
difficulty understanding. It's not consciousness, it's awareness of the outside. So, like the way I think about it is that we all have an internal stream of consciousness. You think about it like when you're asleep, right?
Right.
You may know, that time is passing and something's going on in a dream, but you have no idea what's going on the outside in the
Oh,
room,
that's a
in the
great way to
world.
describe it.
The world could
Yeah.
be exploding and you're asleep and you don't know it. And that happens when you're having a seizure that alters awareness. But you can also, in a
Oh no. Sorry, I think we're having some technical difficulties. Sorry, hold on. It might be me.
so both of those can happen in different kinds of seizures, and there are many different kinds of seizures that can occur. And getting into, okay, so why does that brain become hyperexcitable? There are a couple of different ways that can happen. One is that you're just unfortunate and you're born with the tendency to epilepsy. So there are a lot of genetic reasons to have epilepsy. And a lot of people think, oh, well, if it's a gene, then I have to have inherited it from my parents. And people remember the Mendelian genetics that they were taught in
Oh,
biology
sure.
class in 12th grade, with the peas or whatever. But it's not always like that. It could be that there is actually a combination of genes that come from different places that all happen to come together in a single pattern that produces epilepsy. So nobody in your family has it, but you have it.
Okay.
Also, you can have spontaneous mutations in genes that your parents don't have, but you have.
But you
So,
have. Okay.
some epilepsy can be from just one gene,
Okay.
and some epilepsy can be from lots of different genes that just the pattern is wrong, and that produces the epilepsy. So that's a little harder for us to find than the single gene. And we know
Mm,
lots of single genes that cause epilepsy. But
okay.
the most common thing is that there's one little patch of brain somewhere that's hyperexcitable, and it could be because of a reason that's very clear, like you had an infection in the brain and that produced a scar, and that scar is hyperexcitable, or you had an injury to the brain, you had a traumatic injury to the brain, or you have a tumor in the brain. All of those things that disrupt the brain in one little area, or some other disease that causes disruption of the brain, can all make it hyperexcitable. And in that case, seizures are almost a symptom of that other thing that happened to you.
Oh, okay.
Right? The seizures can be a symptom, like, you have pneumonia and you have a cough. You have something wrong with the brain, and the brain produces the brain's version of a cough, which is a
Is your
seizure,
seizure.
right?
Wow. Wow. Okay.
And then sometimes we have absolutely no idea why people have epilepsy, and that's actually about half the time that
About half the time.
we unfortunately do not know. We can say we know you have it. Maybe we know where it's coming from in the brain, but we don't know why you have it. And in a lot of cases, it doesn't really matter because what we do, just like the analogy of the cough,
Mm-hmm.
the brain cough, is we treat it with a symptomatic treatment. Like you get a cough syrup, you get, some kind of cough suppressant. And our seizure medicines, for the most part, are like seizure suppressants. It doesn't matter what caused it. You have a symptom, we're going to treat that symptom, and that's what most of the drugs are. And
Ah.
many of them work very well. So that's the good part. But the bad part is that just like any other symptomatic treatment, the day you don't take it, you can have your symptom come back. So that means you have to take it every day
Very diligent.
if you don't want the symptom any of those days. And unfortunately, having even one seizure, you have one day with cough. Okay, so what? You start taking your cough medicine again. But one day with a seizure could ruin your whole life because then you lose
Right.
your driver's license. Maybe people see it and there's consequences of that. So that's why people taking their medication on schedule every single
So
day for
important.
the medicines we have now is really important. But, and I know I'm talking a lot, but I
No,
got
go
to get this
ahead.
point in that, what I am so excited for
That's a great,
starting
actually, hold
now.
on. Someone asked that question and I was going to ask you, so that's perfect. So go ahead.
What I'm excited for the future is that we're moving from the symptomatic treatments to treating the equivalent of treating the pneumonia that caused the cough. So if we know what causes the seizures, then why can't we treat that, right? Instead
Right.
of just suppressing the symptom. And we do that when we do surgery, right? So we say, oh, the seizures are coming from this little part of the brain. Let's just remove it. Or there's now laser therapy. Let's just give a little, laser and laser out that part and stop that excitability that way. That's a treatment of the problem rather than the symptom. But now we're even starting to have treatments that treat the genes that correct the genetic defect, believe it or not, that causes the epilepsy. And we're going to see whether those work. And as time goes on, I think we're going to have more and more treatments that treat the underlying cause rather than just treating the symptom.
Right, right, which makes sense. Would you say that that's your biggest challenge right now is getting to treat the actual problem, not the symptom?
Um, I think that there are a couple of challenges that we're working on, and I'm excited to tell you about how we're working on them. So,
Yeah.
one thing that a lot of people out there, if they have epilepsy, this is one of their enormous frustrations, and it's one of mine as a doctor, too. So, in terms of the symptomatic treatments, right? So, the first thing to say is, good news there is that if you were to show up in my office tomorrow, and by the way, you could, because any of us could show up with seizures tomorrow, that
Right,
symptom, right? Every human being on earth is at risk, and 1 in 26 of us will have it at some point in our lives.
right.
Then the chances are 2 out of 3 that I could give you a medicine and that medicine would stop your seizures as long as you took that medicine every day.
Two out
And
of
it is
three.
a burden. 2 out of 3, it's not
Wow,
bad,
that's not
right?
bad. No.
So the symptomatic treatments are not bad, but the frustration to me, the frustration to the people I treat is that there may be a specific medicine, a key for your lock, so to speak. But I can't tell looking at you that that's the medicine for you. So I might have to try medicine A,
Mm,
medicine B, medicine C, medicine D, and then medicine E is the right one. I'm like, darn, why did this person have to have so many seizures, you know, through all of those medicines that didn't work when there was one sitting right there that would have worked for them? And
right.
it's just invisible to us, what makes a medicine work for a particular person. Right now, it's invisible to us.
Okay.
And I've been doing studies in my role at NYU to look at, trying to get the best drug for a person right out of the starting gate rather than, waiting.
Right.
And the Epilepsy Foundation is launching a very exciting um, initiative that I hope anybody who's listening will be willing to do. And it's called EDEN, which stands for the Epilepsy Digital Experience Navigator. And that's kind of a mouthful, so EDEN is better. But
Yeah.
basically, it is an app that you can download on your phone or on your computer where it will help you share your epilepsy journey, first of all. So, what is happening to you over time? What medicines did I take? Did they work? Did they not work? Did they make me feel bad? Or did I do okay with them and I feel okay? And you can gather up information from one person, 5 people, 10 people, 100 people, but when you get to 1,000 people, thousands of people,
Right.
then that information starts to make sense to say, well, this medicine maybe didn't work for this group of people, but it worked great for that group of people. And you start to be able to sort people out. And that is not what the FDA does when it approves a drug. All of that work I've done over all that time. Basically, the FDA is trying to make a broad statement for everybody. This
Right.
drug works for epilepsy or it doesn't work. They're not really interested in it works for Mrs. Smith, but it doesn't work for Mrs. Jones, right? But
That's
I
an
am.
important distinction. Yeah.
I am interested in whether it works for Mr. Smith, Mrs. Smith, and Mr. and Mrs. Jones. So, you know, on the one hand, it allows people, and I always say, and thank you for all of your generosity already and how much people have given on this Twitch. You can give money, and some people can, and some people can't, but everybody can give their journey.
Right.
It's a different kind of donation, but it's equally as important. We want the money too, but we want the journey too, so that we
Right.
can work these
The
things out.
money is supports Eden. The money supports the research, the treatment. Like,
Right.
yeah, it all
Exactly.
is a cycle. I totally agree. I'm so
But
excited for Eden. Do we know when that's gonna?
yes, we do. It's
Okay.
going to launch in the fall, and
Awesome.
it's not just all about give, give, give.
Hmm.
We want to make sure that we are also providing people with a tool. So what this tool will allow you to do is track the important things. As you're tracking it for us, you're also tracking it for yourself, so that you can keep better track of your seizures, of what side effects you have with medicine. You can even right now plug in a Fitbit so that,
Oh,
like let's
cool.
say, I personally have talked to so many people who, don't even notice that when they go on a new medicine, for example, they sleep an extra hour every day, but
Oh,
it
okay.
could look at those patterns over time, and it'll be really easy to look at because you'll get a dashboard that just organizes all of this information
That's so
for you
helpful.
and for your doctor, so that you can bring it in to your doctor and your doctor can look at it and see if they can see patterns that make sense for you personally, right? So it's helpful for you and it's helpful for us, which is, win-win. I
It
love
really
win.
is a win-win. Yeah. That's so exciting. I love the whole dashboard concept and connecting your devices.
And
Um,
we are very fortunate to work with a fantastic company called Emblema that has made things that I think are very easy to use.
oh,
Everybody who
good.
sees their stuff is like, yeah, this is really super simple. So, for example, a lot of people struggle with seizure diaries where you have
Oh,
to go in every day and put in information every day, and it's a burden to do that, and not everybody can do that. So we have sort of a system in Eden which is texting for seizures. So you get to
oh,
choose whether you want Eden to text you daily, weekly, monthly, or even quarterly and ask you if you've had a seizure. So for people who only have one or two seizures every year, it's not going to ask you every day because that would be stupid, right?
right,
It's just going to
right,
ask you every 3 months. And if things change, you can go in and say, oh, now my seizures are worse. I really want to get a text every week so I can keep track of them, or, it's flexible that way.
right.
And then all of that information will be put into that dashboard that you can then hand over to your doctor. And let me tell you, everybody out there who's listening, for me, a doctor, having information about when seizures happened is so important.
Yeah.
It's really important.
I
So we can figure out how to make them not happen, obviously.
Such an important tool. Well, guys, in the chat, we're gonna have to keep you posted. Obviously, as Stream for Epilepsy, we try to keep you updated on new developments, but we will definitely have Eden on our radar because that's such a cool tool that I think a lot of people in our chat could use
Yeah,
or
and
share with
another
their loved
thing that
ones.
that this audience might appreciate more than even most is that there's also going to be a community aspect. So it's like, I have seizures this often. How does that compare to everybody else? How's everybody else
Right.
doing?
Oh, that is
How
cool.
does how many people are on the drug I'm on, and how are they doing? Are they complaining about the same side effects I'm complaining about?
Wow, so they can see like the raw not the raw data, but the data of like how many people are taking this drug just like me and be able to compare themselves.
Right. I mean, we're not
Okay.
going to start that feature until we have enough people on the
Right.
platform that makes sense to do it, but
So there's
yes.
definitely a positive to getting on there quick and getting a ton of people on there, so we can get more information, which is so important. We had somebody in our chat who said, I just wanted to say thanks for doing what you're doing to help those with epilepsy and keep up the great work.
Oh, thank you.
That was
Thank you very
Misty
much.
Summer. Thanks, Misty. Misty's one of our new followers, so thank you for joining us. If anybody has any other questions, please put it in. Oh, we had a compliment about Eden. That's so smart. Agreed. Um, agreed.
I'm so glad. I can't wait till like maybe I can come
I
back
would love to
in
have you come back about
fall
that. Yes.
and like show people exactly
We
how
could
it
do a
works.
demo.
Yeah, do
Yeah.
a demo.
I love that idea. Yeah, I was just thinking about that in my head. I know I said next year I could talk to you again, but I might have to bug you in your busy schedule to come back sooner because I think our audience would really love to see that and they would be very willing to jump on to that kind of platform too because a lot of them are very tech savvy.
Exactly. We need the tech
Hmm.
savvy and we need them to sort of bring the others along,
Right. And show
a
them how
little
easy
bit.
it is. Right.
Yeah.
Right. I totally agree.
Or tell
Wow.
us whether the stuff is
If
good
it
or bad.
sucks.
You know.
Yeah.
I hope
We need
not,
that
but
feedback too. No, for sure. For sure. I
absolutely.
agree.
And by the way, for all those listeners out there, we need people who will help us put this together too and make sure that it's good for the community. So
Oh.
if anybody wants to be, a beta tester, let me know, or sort of look at some of the features and would this work for me? Let me know.
I would love to be able, if you're okay with that, I'd love to be able to share that with the community. Maybe we can connect offline with what that would look like or what I could share with them to become a beta tester, because I'm sure some of these people would love to do that.
Fantastic.
Perfect. Yay! I love it. I love it. Guys, how's it going? Ask more questions for Dr. French. We're going to keep moving on, but I'm monitoring the questions. For those of you who have joined us recently, I know we've been chatting for about a half hour now. This is our Let's Talk About Epilepsy series. So it's our first one of season one. For reference, our seasons of Stream for Epilepsy start on July 1, just to make our financial reporting much easier. That's getting more in the weeds than you probably need to know. So this is our first Let's Talk About Epilepsy stream. We've got Dr. Jackie French, or Jacqueline French. Do you have a preference?
Either
No?
is
Okay,
fine.
good. So Dr. French is an expert on epilepsy and seizures. She's been studying this for 30 years. She talked about that earlier in the stream if you want to take a peek. And she's our Chief Medical and Innovation Officer at the Epilepsy Foundation. So if you've joined, feel free to type in a question in the chat. She's been answering them amazingly, explaining things very simply. We've gotten a lot of compliments about the way that you're explaining things, how you're making a lot of sense out of it. So that's awesome. Um, Misty said, I actually have epilepsy and I'm trying my hardest to raise awareness on my stream. So I support everyone that helps support epilepsy. Yes, love it, Misty. That's what we're here for. And that's what Dr. French was talking about. Raising awareness is so important. Oh, gotta
And
run.
I understand that, it's difficult because, epilepsy has suffered from stigma for,
Right.
you know, for centuries,
That's a
centuries.
good that's a good segue to talk about photosensitivity, right, with our community. A lot of people, we've gotten this question multiple times, why we do streaming when people could get a seizure from photosensitivity. So maybe, Dr.
Love
French,
that
you could
question.
break down photosensitivity and seizures.
All right. I love that question because interestingly enough, everybody should know that this is something that is of very significant interest to the Epilepsy Foundation. We have a large group that's working, that I was just on a 2-hour phone call yesterday,
Oh,
working with them, the experts from all over the world, literally all over the world, who are trying to create, sort of both information for people who develop games and movies and other things, telling them how to decrease the risk of, triggering a seizure, but also trying to give information to people with epilepsy as well as to doctors because there's a lot of, misunderstandings around this.
ah, okay.
So the first thing that's really important for everybody out there to know is that photosensitivity does not exist in everybody who has epilepsy or a seizure disorder. It's actually pretty rare. So the vast majority of people who have photosensitivity have the genetic epilepsy that I talked about before, not the
Oh, sure.
acquired epilepsy.
Okay.
So there, there are a couple of types of epilepsy where it's more common. Absence epilepsy, that's some people may know it by petit mal, juvenile myoclonic epilepsy, and these are seizure disorders that usually happen. They start when people are in their school age years. Absence seizures can start in like elementary school or middle school, and myoclonic seizures can start when people are in high school, junior high school, and maybe early college. I think of it that way. And those are the people who are at the most risk. So if
Oh.
you don't know whether you're at risk, and even within those people, there really are only a subset who are sensitive. So let's talk about what photosensitivity is.
Yes.
It is uh, what we call a reflex epilepsy. And, you know, just as an interesting aside, there are other kinds of reflex epilepsy. They are rarer, but they exist. So people can have a seizure when there's eating epilepsy, there's reading epilepsy, there's, you know, other triggers that can cause an epilepsy in a very small handful of people. But the most common trigger is light, but the light has to be flashing at a certain frequency. So
Hmm.
people's brains are sensitive to a certain flash frequency. So how many times it flashes per second. And you know, the flashes per second is called hertz in our language, like
Hmm.
3 hertz, 4 hertz. And usually people are most sensitive at about 18 flashes a second.
Oh, okay.
Um, so that's 18 hertz. Um, so you know, the things that make a boom 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 flash are the things that people are most sensitive to. However, in addition, the light has to be very strong and it has to take up most of what you're seeing in your visual field. So,
Oh.
like, for example, people worry about disco balls, things like that.
Yeah.
Usually high and far away and not that strong. And most people would not have a seizure when they're,
From a
you know,
disco ball.
yeah, from a disco ball
Okay.
or from, let's say, an ambulance going by.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
However, the most common thing that causes people to have light sensitive seizures, believe it or not, is the sun. So the sun is a
Oh.
very strong light. It's a very strong light. And most people find out that they're photosensitive when they are on the school bus driving to school and the light is coming through trees and going boom, 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 boom through the trees, and bam, a seizure happens.
Wow. That's really
Or
interesting.
Or another one that I hear a lot is they go out on a winter day and it's a bright winter day and the sun is glinting off of the snow. That would be another strong light source. But of
Right.
course, if you're sitting in front of a screen and the screen is going boom, 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 flash, it's all your visual field. It can be a very strong light and that can do it as well. So, you know, there are certain tests. There's something called the Harding test, and you can take your video game, your movie, whatever it is, and you can put it through this digital tester, and it will tell you there is a sequence that is likely to cause people to have a seizure or not.
Wow.
So most people will run their material through the Harding test,
Right.
and you know if they don't, they can.
It's called the
Um,
Harding test?
the
Okay.
Harding test. Um, and so you know that's how we try and keep movies and videos safe. Now, most people, again, and we're only talking about 1 or 2% of the world of people with epilepsy. So it's not
That have
everybody,
photosensitive epilepsy.
right,
Hmm.
that have this as a trigger. It's not everybody. And you can find out if you have photosensitive epilepsy by getting just a routine electroencephalogram, which is that test most people with epilepsy get where they paste
Oh, they have the.
electrodes.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's like takes an hour, and they flash lights right in front of your face as part of that test to see whether you are light sensitive. So that
Mm-hmm.
is a part of essentially every test, that EEG test that people get. So you can just go to your doctor and you can say, "Hey, I had that EEG. Can you tell me if the lights were, affected me?"
Right.
Most of the time, if they do, people are going to feel it. It's like they feel fuzzy, or they feel like they're twitchy, or they may feel like they have a seizure feeling when those lights are going off. But occasionally, it will not be something that they feel because it's not quite intense enough, but those people might still be at risk if they go to a movie or a light is more intense.
Ah,
So,
okay.
by the way, there's also an age where people are most susceptible, and unfortunately, it's the same age where people game, but
Oh,
adolescence and early adulthood, like up to the age of 25,
sure.
people are much more likely to be photosensitive than when they get older.
That's really interesting. So we do know quite a bit about photosensitive epilepsy, it sounds like.
Right, and most people are not at risk.
Right.
And probably if you're at risk, you already know it
Right.
from, again, the
Something
light flashing
happened.
through the
Yep.
trees and other things. And one very important thing, just in case anybody out there in Twitch land is photosensitive, the first thing that you would think is, oh my God, there's a light coming, close my eyes, right? Close my eyes so I don't see the light. Guess what? It's the absolute wrong thing to do.
Really?
It is the absolute wrong thing to do. So closing your eyes actually increases the likelihood that you will have a seizure.
Huh. Wow. That's really interesting.
But what you can do is cover one eye.
Just one eye. Just one
Cover
eye.
one eye.
Okay.
Cover one eye. That will very much decrease the likelihood that you will have a seizure. So
Wow.
now you know.
Yes, now you know. Everybody in the chat. Yes, someone just said I didn't know that. She also said good morning. She's one of our ambassadors. She actually has epilepsy. So you just taught her something new about epilepsy that she has. So that's
That's the
awesome.
kind of thing that our group that we brought together
Yeah,
wants to like make sure everybody knows is
right.
don't close your eyes.
That is really important information, actually. That's like a basic, you know?
Yeah, it's a base.
Um,
And
so,
you might even be able to, everybody is who is photosensitive has a sense of, you know, how photosensitive they are, what they can get away with, what they can't.
right.
If you really want a game and you're feeling a little, yeah, I don't know if I can do this, try it with patched, one eye patched or whatever, and see if that helps. And by the way, there are people, but they're rare, who are sensitive to much higher frequencies. And when you get to higher frequencies of flash, you're getting to the point where the eye can't distinguish that it's even flashing. Like you can
Mm.
think about a fluorescent bulb
Oh, sure.
could be flashing and you don't even notice it, but at a very high frequency, it's flashing. And there are some unfortunate people who are sensitive to those very high frequencies that could have a seizure even from a bulb that doesn't look like it's flashing. So
Ah,
just know that because, if you happen to notice that when you go into like a brightly lit bathroom and suddenly you have a seizure, go to your doctor and say, I need to be tested.
right. And this is something that they would be able to track in Eden, right?
Yes, they
Yeah.
will be able to track in Eden.
Very cool. Very cool. So, photosensitive epilepsy, everybody. Debunking some myths, learning a little bit about how to prevent a seizure from happening. Just close one eye, cover one eye.
Don't close it,
Or not
cover it.
close, cover it. No winking. Close it. Well, Dr. French, I'd love to talk to you a little bit more about. Um, I know we talked about how obviously you're the innovation officer at the Epilepsy Foundation. So I'd love for you to talk a little more about how we at the Epilepsy Foundation are fostering innovation. And I know you've touched on it a little bit already, but if you could just kind of dive into it, I know you're very passionate about it. So we'd love to hear more about kind of the things that we're hopeful for in terms of treating epilepsy and obviously getting towards a place where maybe we can maybe end epilepsy and what that would look like.
So the first thing I want to tell you is about our programs because I'm kind of proud of those as well.
Yes. Yes, please.
Um, so the two that I want to talk to you about is the first one that's been going on for now many years is called the Shark Tank,
Oh, Shark Tank.
and
Yes.
it happens once a year, and basically is patterned after what a lot of people know, the Shark Tank on
Yes.
TV, and we did get permission from
Are
them
you the
to do
Mr.
Shark Tank.
Wonderful?
No, I am not a shark. I am not a shark. I'm just the MC.
Oh, you're the MC? Okay, cool.
I'm the
Cool.
MC of the Shark Tank, but every year we pick different sharks, and the sharks are basically people with epilepsy. So anybody here could be a shark.
Oh,
People
cool.
who are, in the development space, people who work at the Epilepsy Foundation, um, doctors. So different people who can come at it from different perspectives, just like the sharks come at it from
Yeah,
different.
they do.
And we have a big contest where people, can send us a proposal for something that they're developing that can help people with epilepsy. And we pick five of them that will come live every year and pitch in front of the sharks. And the sharks
Ooh.
hear the pitch. And at the end of the day, there are two prizes that can be awarded. One is a $25,000, what we call community award, for something that is not necessarily going to be something that's going to be commercialized and, like sold or
Oh,
whatever.
sure.
And then the second one is the what we call the investment prize, which is $250,000.
That's incredible.
And that's $250,000 that the Epilepsy Foundation will invest into something that will help people with epilepsy, and hopefully will also be so successful that eventually the Epilepsy Foundation will get a return on that investment and be able to do even more research.
Right.
So, again, we always like two bangs for our buck. Um,
And
so
so
it's helping
we
something.
we fund these grants with how do we fund them?
So the community award, they just get a big check of 20. Yeah, like we actually hand them a big check,
Is it
but
a
later
big
we give
check?
them a little. Yeah, like we give them a big
Publishers
check.
Clearinghouse check?
Yeah, exactly. We do the publishers clearinghouse check, but we also give them a normal check.
Okay.
And they basically tell us what they want the money for, what they're going to use it for. So I'll give you some examples. Um, One of the things, vis-a-vis what we were just talking about, in the community awards section this year, we just had it about a month ago. One of the things that was pitched in the Shark Tank was somebody was trying to create a mechanism whereby when there is a possible photosensitive segment in a film, they show it like basically frame by frame, much slower, so you can see what the story is, and
Mm,
you have the audio, but you don't have the video, so that kids can watch, Disney movies that otherwise they wouldn't be able to watch.
mm.
So that was one thing. What ended up that didn't end up winning. There was another person that was pitching a device that he was creating in the shower because unfortunately people do pass away because they drown in the shower, where you basically have a belt that connects by, a retractable
Oh,
cord to a device that if you fall down with a seizure in the shower, it cuts off the water so that the water can't
that's
fill
smart.
up. But what won was actually an app to improve the lives of teenagers in Western Africa.
Oh, cool.
So, um,
Wow. I just posted a link about Shark Tank. So, is
so
that
people can read about what
yes.
won. It was very
What was it
cool.
called? Like uh,
So M. Kifafa
M
was
Kifa.
something that won in the past,
Oh,
which
that
was
one in the past.
an
Okay,
app
sorry.
app in Africa to use on a flip phone to
Oh,
get more
cool.
information about epilepsy. But this was
So it's
to
just that the one that won was to just give more information.
no, it was so that adolescents in Africa, and it's very difficult for people in Africa in terms of perceptions and the fact that people think of it with black magic and all
Yes,
kinds
just
of
lack of
things,
education. Yeah.
that they can talk to each other, that they can create networks, that they can improve their their feelings of self-worth
Oh, I
and
love
that sort of
that.
thing. So that's what got the $25,000 prize. And by the way, I should mention that the community award is voted on by the community. So
Right.
we have an app, and people vote on the app, and whoever gets the most votes, that's what wins the
We need to share the
25,000.
voting next time. We missed the boat on that.
But the $250,000 one gets voted on by the Sharks. And this year, what won was a device that you can put over the bed of somebody sleeping who has epilepsy, that can basically look under the covers, basically, and look at movements and learn about that person, what might be a seizure, and alert somebody in another room.
Wow. That is cool.
So that's in development,
It's in
but
development. Okay.
yeah. But they need the money obviously to develop it. So that's pretty cool too. And the next Shark Tank will be next March.
Next March. Okay.
So that's one of the programs we're very excited about. And a lot of the things that we have put money into through the Shark Tank over the years have actually come to the clinic and have helped people. And those are the innovations we're excited about. So, for
Right.
example, Empatica, some people may have heard about the Empatica
I'm gonna share
Embrace,
that link. Yep.
um, is a watch that people can wear that detects seizures and alerts someone that you're having a seizure so they can come and help you. And that is on the market, and people can buy it. So that was a successful one. There's a kind of EEG with easier electrodes to put on that we put money in. That's on the market. Trying to think that we actually put some money early on, believe it or not, into Epidiolex, which is medical marijuana for epilepsy, that's
Oh,
now
yep.
approved by the FDA. So
Hmm.
we've made some good investments over time. But before now, we didn't get a return on investment. That's the newest thing, is we're getting a return on investment. And that's how the other thing that I wanted to talk about briefly is that we also now have a research investment fund through the Epilepsy Foundation, where we will be making other investments outside of the Shark Tank, that in companies. And it's not only medications, it's devices, it's other things, it's that, like the things that I was just talking about, that hopefully will eventually, they could get to the market and get paid for by insurance. It's not that people are going to have to take money out of their pocket and pay for it, right?
Right.
So one way you can get success is that it's such a useful thing that insurance will eventually pay for it. Or there may be some things that people have to pay a couple dollars a month in order to have, or they buy it. Like if this shower device were to work, you might buy it for
Someone
from
in the chat
Amazon.
said they need that, the shower device.
Well, I think the guy is actually selling it. So,
Oh, they are?
yeah, in Canada, it's a guy from Canada. So, if they follow up, maybe we can get them information.
Angelic, if you hear that, look it up. It's apparently in Canada. We maybe try to nail that down for you.
But yeah, we all thought it was a great idea, and a lot of people
It is a
voted
great
for
idea.
that.
Yeah, that makes a
So,
lot of sense.
yeah, and obviously, the person who developed that was somebody who had a niece, unfortunately, who passed
Oh,
away in the shower. So that was his motivation.
right.
So, a lot of the community, like for example, the one that won the year before was a mother who wanted to make sure that her daughter had rescue medicine available to her at school. And, it seemed like whenever she was having a seizure, the rescue medicine was somewhere else. Everybody can
Mm,
like appreciate that. So she just
right.
created a simple like band. It looks like a watch, but it has a compartment so that you can keep the rescue medicine inside the compartment,
Wow.
and
So
it's
simple.
always there right with you.
Makes a lot of
And
sense.
like it has a big medical symbol on it so that everybody knows, go for that box
Right.
if my daughter has a seizure.
Right. Wow.
So
That's really cool too. So much great innovation. It really
Yeah.
sounds,
We want to, I mean, that's what we're all about is we
yeah.
want to foster innovation, innovation. That's,
And
I'm the
really,
chief
really
innovation
meaningful
officer.
innovation, right? Not just using the word, like really meaningful innovation. Hopefully, all of you in the chat have heard a lot about what Dr. French and what you've been doing at the Epilepsy Foundation and what your support helps.
Yeah, and
It's
let me
so
just talk
important.
about one more
Yeah, go for
exciting
it.
thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry,
No,
one
you're
more thing
good.
that
I
we
love
are
it.
that we actually put $3 million into. So it was our big,
Big
gamble.
investment. Yeah.
A big investment gamble through our Innovation Institute was on it's a project called My Seizure Gauge,
Mm,
and it's for seizure forecasting. And after 3 years, we're getting very close to people being able to get, like the weather report, a gauge based on some pretty simple stuff like your resting heart rate from day to day and seizure patterns that have been demonstrated because you're keeping a diary, like I talked about before.
right.
Um, and with that information, with the patterns, with the resting heart rate, and we're adding more things in as we go. Every day you could get like your app on your phone telling you, today's a good day. Not, you don't have a very high likelihood of a seizure. Go out and do what you want to do. Or today is a high risk day. Make sure you
Mm,
take care of yourself. And one of the worst parts of having epilepsy, I don't have to tell people here, is the unpredictability. So we're
right.
we're working hard to get rid of that unpredictability.
So will my seizure gauge and Eden work together?
Yes, we are very much
Cool.
hoping that people who track their seizures in Eden, that can go into seizure prediction. And also, again, through the Fitbit, they can
Right.
get their resting heart rate and
They can
everything
all
you need is going
communicate.
to be right there.
That is so cool. I'm excited about
I
that.
can't guarantee that that's going to happen on the first day,
Oh, of
but
course.
it is
Yeah.
in our roadmap.
Yes. 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 So you guys, you see at the Epilepsy Foundation, we are doing a lot to foster innovation. I know it's something that I can't always articulate because I'm not the expert, as evidenced by Dr. French here today. She literally helped create FDA processes for monotherapies. So she clearly is the expert. If you have any other questions, feel free to ask them here quick, but we are going to wrap up. Dr. French is very busy and very important, as we all know. So we promised her the hour. So we have 5 more minutes. If you have any other questions for her, please, please, please ask. This is the time. I think I'd love for you to come back once Eden is live and we can do a little walkthrough of it and maybe we can talk more about lifestyle and epilepsy and the different ways to treat outside of drug therapy or devices, if that sounds good to you. I know that was a topic on our
I
list today.
That sounds great. You can never get to everything you want to say.
Of
It's
course
like
not. But this was really important though. I think this is a really good starting point just to for people to have some idea of what we're doing and what they're supporting and what the summer relay stream support, guys. So any donation made towards this, towards summer relay stream and you streaming for the Epilepsy Foundation, even if it's not during this weekend, is going to help foster more innovation, foster Dr. French and other experts, people in the Shark Tank to be able to make those changes that are so important to our community where we can get to a place where we can treat what Dr. French said as the problem, not the symptom. We need to stop treating the cough. We want to actually treat the epilepsy itself and the seizures themselves, or before the seizures, what causes them, right? So that is what your dollars and what your support and what raising awareness really helps to do. So thank you guys for joining us on our chat. Do we have any other questions? I saw someone typing. No questions yet. I won't hold you hostage then if there are no more questions. Do you have any last thoughts or things that you would like to just say to our community?
Well, I guess my last thought to tell you is that your ability to communicate what's going on with you with your doctor is super
So important.
important, and you need to find a doctor that you can communicate with. Don't accept anything else.
Right. Make that search. And do you generally recommend like an epileptologist or like what type of doctor that people should maybe because we have a resource right where you can find epileptologists in your community.
I believe so,
Yeah,
yes.
it might be
And I
the
and I do
NAEC,
think, any town that you live in, you can, just type in epilepsy center near
right?
me,
Epilepsy Center.
and yeah. And, epilepsy centers tend to be full of
Right.
epileptologists.
And that's
So
what
you
you
have
need,
to
right?
find the
It's
epilepsy center.
because what is kind of the distinction? Like what makes somebody an epileptologist for those viewing that might not know?
So after you finish your general training in the brain,
Hmm.
neurology, you do 1 to 2 additional years, or crazy people like
Fellowship,
me, 3 additional years of fellowship, to learn specifically about how to take care of people with epilepsy. But the
right?
most important thing is that there are so many diseases out there, sadly, that affect the brain, that somebody who's a general neurologist and treating all of them can't possibly be up
It's
to date
impossible.
on
Yep,
every new medicine, how to use it, what the best people to use it in, and people, who are epileptologists are treating nothing but epilepsy, people
right.
with epilepsy all the time, and they're up to date on everything that's going on.
There's a reason why residency for neurology is like 7 years, right? And then fellowship on top of that.
Yeah,
It's
well,
a lot.
actually, residency is 4 years.
Oh, it's
Fellowship,
4 years. Oh,
yeah,
maybe I'm just
they're not
thinking about
urologists.
surgery. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about surgery. For those of you who don't know, actually, I think most of our viewers know because he's been on here before. My boyfriend's a urologist because they asked if he was a neurologist. I said, no, urologist, different part of the body. Please don't ask him epilepsy questions. Go to your
Yeah, we're not going to ask
epileptologist.
about which of those parts of the body is more fun. We're not going to ask that question.
Oh gosh, well, Dr. French, it was an absolute delight to have you today, and I really just want to thank you again for your time, and your willingness and your flexibility with all my technical difficulties. Thank you for answering all of our questions in the chat. I'm very excited because there's just so much that's going to help this community and obviously the community at large. And Angelic Warrior just said thank you for the time and information today, Dr. French. Um, so they are so grateful for you joining us. And also, it was great to talk to you more. You are so busy, so I don't get to even talk to you. So thank you for all of the information. And we're definitely going to follow up again, guys, November when Eden is live. Maybe we can also get some of you guys to beta test. That is so amazing. And we'll be able to do kind of a walkthrough for some more advancements at the Epilepsy Foundation.
Fantastic. It was a pleasure to be here. It was a pleasure to get to know you, and onward.
Yes, awesome. Well, thank you everybody. We have our next stream. Right now there's a stream happening with Baha Man. So I am going to actually help raid that stream. So let's get that up and running. Dr. French, if you can just hang on for just a second. So basically our viewers are going to go and raid another channel to show some support to somebody that's fundraising right now. So I got to go to my dashboard. All right. And he is actually, Dr. French, he's doing a 24-hour stream.
Oh my.
So he
Well,
just started. He just started.
I hope he doesn't have epilepsy because, sleep deprivation is another trigger.
Yes, yes, it is. I'm
Tell
gonna
him
go
be
through.
careful.
Yes, we actually have some resources about like making sure that you're streaming in a healthy way. Did it raid? Do do do. All right, I'm gonna try it this way. Right now. Okay, bye everybody. Perfect.